This is a question that is very sneaky, not the question itself, but what it is trying to deal with. You see, the mind convinces us that there is no difference whatsoever between panicking or panic and urgency. They're not the same at all, which is a wonderful news. The mind convinces us that experiencing panic essentially is the same as developing a sense of urgency in dealing with challenges, or to pull yourself out of a state of inertia, being stuck in somewhere, some mental state, some habitual pattern that you're unable to jump out of, spring out of, crawl out of. First, one has to really look carefully at what the state of panic induces or causes in us, in you. Panic essentially is telling ourselves that there's nothing we can do at this point, given this set of circumstances, given this data, given whatever life presents us with. So essentially, panic has everything to do with, yes, fear, but also a state of hopelessness. That whatever you do, whatever you're thinking of doing, really, essentially means nothing, because you are powerless. So hopeless and powerless are basically the insignia of panic, which is diametrically opposite of what the state of urgency induces in the mind. There is no panic as such in bringing up, mustering up a state of urgency in one's recalibration, readjustment of focus, where the attention has to go. A state of, it's a resolve that is brought up in the heart, in the mind, in your attitude. Transformation of character takes place thanks to a state of urgency where you've reached a point of no return, and this is it. You're committed. So it doesn't have hopelessness. Because hopelessness means, okay, get ready, we're just, we're going downhill from here, and in the sense that there's nothing we can do, and let's brace ourselves, the worst is yet to come, all these scenarios, which, if you notice, the world that we live in, that is how it functions. Currently, it's not the way the world is supposed to function in most cases, but now it is in that state. And when people are in a panic, when they are in a state of, panic also brings chaos, by the way, because you have zero control. And then we start indulging in things. Urgency doesn't have time to indulge in anything, because urgency knows that every step, every decision matters. Every breath counts. Every attention given to the wrong thing pushes you away from the trajectory that you have just established for yourself to attain. So it has everything to do with power. And it also has everything to do with you gaining confidence and faith in yourself, which is not what panic does. Panic strips you of it. Nobody becomes a hero because of panic, because it depletes us of the life force that is necessary for us to grow, to improve upon ourselves, and to achieve the greatest potential that we aspire to for ourselves. Another thing that people don't understand about panic is that it is very much based on the crowd mentality, affected by that. It's not the same with urgency, which in Buddhism we call it Samvega. The Buddha was a big proponent of it. The Dhamma, the teachings, the suttas are full of examples of the Buddha trying to inspire, encourage practitioners to bring that state of urgency to the practice. Urgency that is induced by one's self. So panic forces you to look outside of you for others. You look for this or that thing just to kind of make you feel not so hopeless. Urgency, on the other hand, doesn't need to do that, because it finds a powerful reservoir of resilience, self-reliance, strength, unimaginable strength. Panic will never bring up a state of, or a sense of strength within us. It will strip us of it, if we even had it to begin with. Urgency also gives us clarity of seeing what's in front of us, clearly seeing what is way ahead of us, 10, 15, 1,000 steps ahead of us. Panic doesn't have time for that. It always is looking away, as I mentioned, looks away outside of ourselves. You reach out for this thing that you consider to be a resource or a source of giving you a different, possibly, hopefully, because the person is hopeless, right? So they're looking for any source of hope, including drugs, news, that's a big thing. Anybody saying anything about this matter all of a sudden becomes like a bucket of fresh water for a person who just crossed a desert. That's how enticing it becomes. The craving is so strong in a person who is panicking, because it is a state of helplessness, powerlessness, hopelessness. And that is when you can control populations, and that's why we have been in that state, pushed in that state, into that state, to stay in that state, to fester in that state. And if you notice, the world is always, there's always something that keeps being tossed at us to start chewing on, mentally, emotionally, to perpetuate a state of hopelessness, helplessness. And then you start looking at, okay, so what can I do? What do you want me to do so that we can get rid of this state of helplessness, hopelessness? Whether in the form of giving up citizens' rights for this, and that. Yeah, sure, I'll give that up. I'll give that up. I'll give that up. Sure, yeah. Just let us get over this hump of this nightmarish scenario that you're telling me, that you're warning me against. That is not urgency. Urgency is powerful because even on the surface, when you look at a person who is, or even yourself, when you are geared towards a mission, you're able to see what's in front of you. There's such a powerful presence about you. And what that is also saying is that you have responsibility. That's what it is, right? Urgency is also you taking the responsibility for what it is that you're about to say, you do, you think, now and in the future. You're taking ownership of your life. Panic is you giving up everything. Ownership of your emotions, of your decisions, of your body. And that's why the crowd becomes a perfect embodiment of that, multiplier of that state of panic. That's why it's very powerful for them. It's a powerful weapon against humanity. Panic. Versus urgency. Because urgency says, okay, hold on, let me take a moment here to assess. Panic doesn't know anything about assessing anything. Urgency, there's a deliberate mindset involved. And it has everything to do with the person, not the crowd. Remember. So you see, there's so many, already we see so many differences between the two. For panic, there can't be any future. That's another way of looking at it. Urgency is all about the present and the future. It's a transformation of the person, of the situation too, of course, because once you change, the person changes oneself, overcoming the hurdles, overcoming the challenges, both internal challenges and external. Then the surrounding, the atmosphere, everything, the environment will change. So we have to be very careful with what we are presented with. Whether it's issues, global issues, this, that, okay, take charge, decide to making some changes. But remember, when you are going into your neighbor's domain, trying to force something to happen there too, what you're doing is you're actually run on panic fuel. And no good can ever come out of that. What that will turn us into is more fascists. And there's no way of justifying fascism. There's no way of justifying evil like that. But that's where the world is going if we keep this up. Because all you're asking for is if you sit down and listen to what the panic-inducing situations are doing, or after, you're giving up all of those things, the positive qualities that urgency has. Because they will present it as though it is urgency. No, it's not. They're presenting it as panic. That you have no control, this and that, this is going to happen, so we have to do something. And then they throw in that catchphrase. Well, we have to do something. Well, you're doing it all wrong if you think in those terms and then somehow hope that you will be coming together and doing something because of that panic. No. You need to have clear-headedness. You need to look down and see where you're standing. You need to look down at your feet, basically. And where you're coming up with, what you're coming up with, has everything to do with the mind that you are allowing to, the state of mind that you're allowing to perpetuate. So, urgency takes responsibility for your present and the future. Panic gives them up. Totally. And remember, you're not working in a vacuum. What that means is what the Buddha said about having the three poisons in the heart, meaning greed, hatred, and delusion. Today's humanity is drenched in all three of them. We're poisoned. We look elsewhere instead of at the right place where we should be investigating. That is ourselves, our own intentions in wanting to say something, doing something, thinking something. We're never asking those questions. So urgency forces the person to first check themselves and their motives, instead of looking at the world and saying, pointing the finger at the world, saying, you're the problem. That's where the cause of my suffering is. Like that old saying goes, if you point one finger at the world, there's three at least fingers pointing back at you. Your own fingers, that is. So urgency is all about those three fingers pointing at you, because it accomplishes things. That's another quality of urgency. It accomplishes wonderful things if it is directed properly and wisely placed in front of your scope, focus of your life. So it has to be guided not by those three poisons I said about greed, hatred, and delusion, which the Buddha calls lobha, dosa, moha, or raga, dosa, moha. The passionate, driven of wanting, longing for things. Urgency is very self-sustained. Panic is not. Panic doesn't know anything about sustaining anything. It's out of control. It's out of control. If you ever have seen footage of a car crash, let's say, especially if cars that are, or any vehicle that's traveling at a very, very, very fast speed, and then it loses control. So the car tumbles, flips so many times. That's panic. That not maybe the driver in those cases, perhaps, because some of them actually have, I've seen footage of drivers in a race car like that coming out alive afterwards. But I'm referring to the car itself, that state of rolling, flipping. That is the state of mind of a person who is experiencing panic. And this is why people will get into drugs, addictions of all kinds. All kinds. Including e-cigarettes. It's causing terrible damage. It started with marijuana about 15, 20 years ago. Everybody was celebrating, yeah, it's legalized. I shook my head and was like, you guys are crazy. Even the most open-minded individual, if they're being truthful, if they are being truthful and wise and responsible, they will say, given the data we have, yeah, actually, it does damage. Definitely. Definitely. And it makes you get into heavier drugs. Yes, it does. When I used to say this as a high school teacher, science teacher, people used to make fun of me, saying that there's no evidence to that. This is like 30 years ago or something. But all of these things, these addictions, are leading you to have more panic, more state of helplessness. And that's how you can really ruin a life. Urgency is not about ruining your life, it's about building your life. It's about, as I said, transforming your character. Because you're not here to toil away, to fight against challenges left and right, and not to reap the benefits. It's not mere survival that you're after. Urgency is far greater than that. It's seeking joy, it's seeking safety, it's seeking peace. None of those things exist for panic, by the way. None. It's the exact opposite. Exact opposite. Nobody attained peace because they were panicking, as a result of panicking. Nobody gained a state of strength or calm or tranquility or security because of their panic. And also, as I mentioned about urgency, allowing you to become more self-sustaining. It's more rational. It's more reasonable with facts. It likes to probe. It likes to ask questions, which the masses don't like to do at all. They just follow. It's the mindset of the sheep, of the herd of sheep. They will be guided anywhere you want. Just use the right tactics. A person who is able to maintain urgency or bring it up, even, already sees a tremendous shift in their behavior, in their thinking. They will notice, and soon enough others around them will notice. And that is what, in the context of the Dhamma, in the context of the Buddha's teachings, without urgency, nobody attained arahanthood. Nobody attained the vision of the Dhamma. Nobody attained true peace, tranquility. Nobody attained the magga, that are the fruits, the path, and the phala, fruits of the Dhamma. Nobody attained any of those sublime states of freedom, nirodha, cessation of suffering. You have to have an element of urgency in your behavior. At least look at yourself. At least look at, okay, am I experiencing, do a rundown take inventory of your state during the day or even at the end of the day. If somebody were to ask me, were my emotions today leaning towards being heavy, negative, worrisome, panicky, or were they more on the other side, which was relaxed, clear-headed, looking for the positives in things, being grateful, having gratitude? Which one was more dominant, basically? So that's what I mean by doing an inventory. And if you notice that you are more on the heavier side, the ugly side, the powerless side, make the shift. That is where you can bring in urgency and really get yourself out of this inertia, out of this hellhole of stagnant suffering. So if you notice, that has nothing to do with ideas. It is about the application, taking charge of your life, which panic doesn't do, by the way. Urgency does. Urgency will bring you safety, true security. And that is the ultimate goal of the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. Nobody can say anything contrary to that if they're really being honest. So anyone can benefit from this instruction of knowing the difference between panic and urgency, cultivating a state of urgency within your mindset, within your heart, and taking the necessary steps to really pull yourself out of that state of fearfulness, panic, powerlessness, hopelessness, etc. Because all these come from having within your heart those defiling qualities, which you can get rid of. Nobody can, other than yourself, to pull it out of your... That's why they're poisons. And those are greed. If I don't do this, somebody else will, so I have to take it. I want to go after this and take it for myself. That. The greed, that's a poison. The other one is hatred. Towards the thing that doesn't agree with you. That represents the opposite of who you are, how you think, etc., etc., for whatever reason. And the third poison is delusion. That state of willfully ignoring to look at the facts and going with impulses, going with what comes easy, what comes habitually, pre-programmed almost. All these things are poisons that cloud the brilliance of the heart, of the mind, of your humanity. So urgency, when done right, will take you to that state with the right principles supporting it. And it will give you true freedom and peace, understanding, and this regalness. Then you will become a hero. You don't become a hero by killing someone else or threatening someone else or domineering over somebody else and their resources, stripping somebody, stealing from somebody, going into someone's home and on a rampage, taking things and their dignity away. That does not make anybody a hero. No matter who gives you stripes and badges and titles, all that is nonsense. You have to answer for that. You will have to answer for that. Not your bosses, you will. That's why no soldier can really be a hero if they're that type of a soldier. True soldiering happens with you first. That's where the real warrior is. And the real warrior is all about facing the worst enemy, which is in your heart. The real warriors are there. And having urgency and working with the urgency, it's not enough, remember. Urgency is the spark. You have to do something with that. You have to make different choices, distinctly different, that bring you from a state of darkness to light. And this is all solo work. When everybody's doing something else, the crowds, the urgent mentality in this, the way I just shared with you, a person working with the right principles will not care. If everybody's going that way, they will be all alone walking this other way. Because that makes you principled. Because you're not in a state of panic. You're thinking clearly. And you're not working on impulses. You're coming from a brilliant heart. And that is what makes you a hero. Not guns and weapons and all that nonsense, which are temporary.